Thank you for staying with us this hour in an intriguing discussion. You are watching In Time TV's On the Edge. This hour, it's Conversations in Medical Education, a special report. We are talking about science, technology, engineering, and math preparedness of secondary students in North America and around the world. And during the commercial break, we were talking about the whole idea of early childhood education and its at least traditional role as kind of the stepchild of the custodial role, as Jay said, of the secondary educational system, and that there's a shift now. And you started to make this point, Ken. Can you pick up on that?
Sure, be happy to, Jonas. And going back to Jerry's data-driven decision-making concepts, we know now that we can do a lot with children birth to age 3. In fact, I was talking about those neural pathways being built and then they go away when they're not used. We know through data that children coming from poor families maybe experience 25 to 30,000 words by the time they get into kindergarten. We also know that children coming from more affluent families hear probably 2 million to 3 million words by the time they get into kindergarten. And so based on that data, the federal government is looking at dumping a lot of money into birth to 3 programs to make sure that all children have access to this wonderful language that will instill in them the concept of learning and should push them with great speed into the educational environment. We need to build capacity. You're not going to have someone being able to take calculus in their senior year or their junior year in high school unless you build a capacity at the beginning, and you need to build capacity at age 1, 2, and 3 to give them the momentum to move into the field of education.
And I want to pick up on that first thought about language, about building a base of language, the words, the concepts. My brother happens to be an educator on the East Coast, and he pointed out to me in an earlier conversation before the show that while STEM, this idea of science, technology, engineering, and math, is incredibly important, if you focus on the stem of the plant only, you end up with a tall plant with no leaves. And so my parents and probably your parents were found it incredibly important for us to have a liberal arts education, a well-rounded education. As interested as they were in seeing that, assuring that we had a good science, a good math, good biology education, chemistry education, they also wanted us to have experience of the world and an appreciation for the language, for facility in communicating, for assimilation of different kinds of ideas, and creating different kinds of dialogues. And these things are as critical elements as STEM is. Otherwise, you end up with what I saw when I was in my PhD program at UIC, a lot of students coming from other countries who were, incredibly proficient in science, engineering, math subjects, and were tabula rasa, blank slates when it came to interpersonal interactions. Their sense of self, their personality were almost flat. And
we have enough of those in the United States as well.
So you don't want these, because that appeals to me, and feel free to jump in here, is as damaging, to preparing our secondary students as having them underprepared in science, technology, engineering, and math.
And don't forget, in the United States, we have this federal concept called FAPE. Free, appropriate, public education, and then you can add for all on there. And we have to educate every child between the age of 7 and 16.
We're bringing up a number of topics that we have covered or we will cover on our shows. But one of the things that Ken talked about is this vast disparity because of socioeconomic status on where students start. Now, it would seem logical to me that if data-driven decision-making, and you accept the fact that people from higher socioeconomic status start at a higher proficiency level than people at lower socioeconomic status, the funding would be inverse to that. However, it is just the opposite. Now, we need to get this discussion on the table, that if it is accepted in data-driven decision-making that these students start out with more proficiency, and there is so much advantage to that position, and now we inversely spend money to solve that problem, that's a huge concern that we need to address.
Some of the materials that I created for assisting students in college placement, when I'm asked the question, what can I do? What's the number one thing I can do to increase the likelihood of being a National Merit Scholarship semifinalist? I can look students straight in the eye and tell them, tell your dad to get a $10,000 raise.
There you go. I apologize. We are at the end of our time here, and so much more to discuss. I would love to pick up on this in a future conversation. You have been watching this hour on the Edge, Conversations in Medical Education, a special report talking about science, technology, engineering, and math preparedness in our secondary school systems. With me, joining the conversation, Jerry Beimler. Thank you so much.
My pleasure.
For joining us. Jay Kunine, Ken Jandis.
Thanks, Jonas.
It's been wonderful having you. I do want to mention that there are a couple of websites that to which you can go to get more information from the STEM Education Coalition. That's www.stemedcoalition.org. And from the National Center for Educational Statistics, that's nces.ed.gov/TIMSS. And that is the National Assessment of Education Programs, NAEP, and Trends in International Mathematics and Science Study, TIMS. I've very much enjoyed having you. I hope you will join us in this conversation again. Thank you for joining us. I do have a website as well. That's jonasmoses.blogspot.com. Please feel free to visit that. And for In Time TV, I'm Dr. Jonas Moses on the Edge.